Hello, I'm Sister Joanna Iannotti, and I'm here at Wisdom House with Cecilia Marshall. I'm Art and Spirituality Coordinator here at Wisdom House, and Cecilia is with us today because she's going to be doing a program on the art of bookmaking, bookmaking for beginners. Cecilia is an art educator, and she's a book artist herself. It's kind of interesting in this age of high tech. Very often we've become very low touch. But in terms of the art of bookmaking, it's very, very much high touch. And some wonderful pieces of art can be made as a result of it. And therefore, I just thought we'd ask Cecilia, first of all, how you became interested in the art of bookmaking.
Well, I loved books and I loved drawing since I was a child. And I went to college for art. I went back to college for art education, and I minored in English. And my first job was actually teaching reading to children, and we had a lot of fun with all the different books and materials for reading for children. And so the two just always stayed together: books, art, visual, word. And I had the opportunity to, I won a fellowship, and I went to Skidmore for about 5 weeks out of the summer on this fellowship. And I was actually painting these big abstractions, but I brought, they asked us to bring a lot of things because we'd be there for 5 weeks, and I brought all these scraps of paper and magazines that had pictures in, and old books, those old art books that they get very sort of moldy in your basement, but the images are too wonderful to throw away. And so in my spare time in the evening, I was cutting these up and putting them together. And then I had an opportunity to take a bookmaking class with Seth Colby, who's a fairly well-known book artist. She has work in collections everywhere, and she travels around the country giving workshops. And it was from the point of view of content. So I did a lot of interesting things. And everyone loved them. There were a lot of family photos sort of collaged into each other. They didn't hold up very well. And the reason they didn't hold up very well was I hadn't learned. I'd learned the next time I took a bookmaking course, I took a class where I learned actually how to put the books together and make a good cover for them, and use archival materials. And the Japanese potters had a saying that in order to achieve thusness, you must learn all the rules, then forget them. So you learn the rules, and once you have the rules in place, then you're not going to put a wonderful image on a rolled piece of paper where it's going to crumple off eventually. Mm-hmm. You know how to put things in, you know what kind of paste to use, what kinds of glues, and all those things. And I became enamored with how beautiful the books are. Mm-hmm. As well as what you can put into them. The traditional Japanese stab binding method, very much, it's called stab binding because you make these little holes in here. And if you're working with paper-bound books, which this is, which is the traditional way of doing it, then you can actually take an awl and do your holes. If you're working with a hardbound, which I find is a sort of nice method for making a safe place to put images, then you drill your holes, and you can play around with how many holes you drill and how much thread to use and patterning. And there are some traditional patterns, and then this is the very traditional, very simple pattern. And you can see the stitching along the side, along your spine. And the interesting thing about this method, which I like, is that you are seeing all the stitching. You have the spine of your book, and yet you're able to open it flat and see the workmanship. You can see the craftsmanship, and the pages fold totally open and flat. Yes. This is a blank journal, and it's filled with beautiful paper from Nepal, which I got in a shop in Great Barrington, conveniently. And this is called a decollage, when your edge is left rough like this and you don't square it up. And I really like that kind of tactile feel of ripping the paper instead of carefully cutting it. Although it certainly is nice to have a book that has nice, carefully cut pages like this one, which is, as you can see with the Japanese stab binding, it's a tight book, which some artists might find too tight. But on the other hand, anything that you're going to put in here, if you want to tip in, tipping in is when you put another sheet in and you glue it in. If you want to put something in there, it's going to stay, it's protected. If you write in it, it's going to be protected and closed nicely. A paper-bound one is going to open a little
Right, I was going to say that looks a little bit more relaxed.
A little more relaxed. So it all depends a lot on, you have to think ahead of what you're going to put in as your content to your book. It's a work in progress. I'm still working on it. And I can open each of these pages to work on my collaging as I'm going along. And so I can think in sequence. I can think in narrative, which is very nice.
Of course, because you're making a book.
Because you're making a book, and that's one of the interesting aspects of the content of your book is it's a narrative. It can tell a story. It doesn't necessarily have to be a lot of words. It can be a visual story. It can be a story that has visuals and words. And I've also seen beautiful haikus done where each segment of the haiku is on a separate page, and the emphasis is on calligraphy, perhaps. So you can play around with that as well.
Oh, just like the monks of the Middle Ages.
Exactly. You know that the word for an illustrated book is illumination.
That's right.
And the root is illuminate, to light up. Right. And it's in more ways than one that you're lighting up. You're illuminating your soul. You're illuminating your thoughts. And when you look at these beautiful illustrations and illuminations.
And that's what the monks did. They illuminated the scriptures.
Exactly. Yeah, to light them up. I love that. This is a fun form of bookmaking. It's actually, I'm going to show the back first. It's a concertina fold. It's simply folded paper, like when you fold a fan when you're a child and you wanted to make a fan, sometimes in church when it's hot, you fold the brochures. And what I've done with this concertina fold is to make a sort of flip book. So when it opens up, it's all these little pieces of card, and the nice thing is that it's not as hard as it looks. You just are putting them on every other section. And you can also open it this way if you want to look at each one.
Each one, yes.
Right, and all the little eyes, it's a simple concertina fold again. And what it is, it's an etching, and it's a modern etching. It's quite abstract. And by putting it into this concertina fold, and closing it off, remember when you're binding it into a binding, you're making it as an object that opens and closes, and you're looking into it, and so that it goes beyond the sort of abstract ideal into something that you also would use. It's an interesting, something you can carry around with you.
Cecilia has shown us a number of what we would call traditional shapes of books, but she's also brought another shape that we would not necessarily consider a book, but it is.
This is a triptych, meaning it has 3 parts. And the traditional triptych always had a large center area, which had the main focus. You see these as altarpieces, and a lot of artists are now taking this format and just taking it a step further, doing different things with it. It closes up. So in my mind, it's very much a book, and then it opens. I think one of the wonderful things about books is the mystery of opening and closing, and then what is contained inside. And I think that's one of those things that becomes very personal to the artist making it. And what I did here was I collaged a lot of images and text. It was in a show, the Artists for Peace show at Milton Town Hall a few years ago, so that you have a Madonna, and you have Venus, and you have Adam and Eve, and they're all awake and talking, but Mars is asleep. He's not really listening. So it's entitled As Mars Sleeps. And I put text in, and I was very lucky to find a very old book that was falling apart in a lovely way. Sometimes the pages they sort of crumple in your hands, but you still don't want to let go of it. And so I play around with hard edges, and ripped edges, and soft edges, and round areas. This side is mainly for Eve, this side is mainly for Adam, and then the centerpiece has the tree of knowledge, and various different images from different time periods.
Another way to tell a story, another way to have fun, another way to create a piece of art, and that is through the art of bookmaking. So, Cecilia, thank you very, very much for being with us today. And we hope that you continue to look at our upcoming programs at Wisdom House. You can go to our website, www.wisdomhouse.org, or you can call us here at Wisdom House to find out about more of our programs by calling 860-567-3163. Bye-bye for now.